There is a simple truth most people ignore. Your home reflects your mind, and your mind reflects your life. If your space is full of unnecessary things, your energy becomes heavy, distracted, and unfocused. But what if you could reset everything in just 12 minutes a day? Before we go further, let me say this honestly. Instead of wasting time on useless things, it would mean a lot if you take a second to like and subscribe to this channel. I put real effort into creating content that can actually improve your life, not just entertain you. Now, let's begin. The Japanese method is not about cleaning your house. It's about building discipline, clarity, and respect for your environment. You don't need motivation, you need structure. Just 12 focused minutes daily can transform your space, your habits, and eventually your mindset. Most people wait for the right mood, but discipline doesn't wait. It acts. So today, you don't clean everything. You start small. You stay consistent. And you prove to yourself that change is not complicated. It is simply repeated action. People often misunderstand change. They think change requires a big moment, a big decision, or a big effort. But that is not true. Real change begins in something small, so small that most people ignore it. Starting small is not weakness. It is strategy. When you try to change everything at once, you fail. Not because you are incapable, but because you are unrealistic. You overload your mind, your body, and your expectations. And when you fail once, you start believing that change is not for you. But the problem was never you. The problem was the size of your start. A small start is powerful because it removes resistance. It removes excuses. It removes fear. Anyone can take a small step. Anyone can commit to just 12 minutes. 12 minutes is not overwhelming. It does not require motivation. It does not require energy. It only requires a decision, and that is where discipline begins. Most people wait for the perfect moment. They say, I will start tomorrow, or I will start when I feel ready. But readiness is a lie. You will never feel ready to do something uncomfortable. That is why discipline exists. Discipline is not about feeling prepared. It is about acting despite not feeling prepared. So instead of waiting, you start small. Today, not tomorrow, not later, now. You don't clean the entire house. You clean one corner. You organize one drawer. You remove 5 useless items. That's it. It sounds insignificant, but it is not. Because what you are building is not just a clean space. You are building a habit. Habits are formed through repetition, not intensity. Doing something small every day is more powerful than doing something big once a week. Consistency beats intensity. Always. When you start small, you reduce the chance of failure. And when you reduce failure, you build confidence. And when you build confidence, you build momentum. Momentum is what most people lack. They start big, fail quickly, and stop completely. Then they repeat the cycle again and again. But when you start small and repeat daily, something changes. You begin to trust yourself. You tell yourself, I can do this. And more importantly, you prove it. Self-trust is built through action, not words. You don't become confident by thinking positive thoughts. You become confident by doing what you said you would do every single day, even if it is just 12 minutes. Now, understand this clearly. Small does not mean easy. It is simple, but it is not easy because the difficulty is not in the task. The difficulty is in the consistency. Doing something once is easy. Doing it every day, that is where most people fail, not because they cannot do it, but because they underestimate the power of repetition. They get bored, they get distracted, they think, this is too small to matter, but that is exactly why it works. Small actions seem insignificant, but when repeated daily, they create massive results over time. Think about it. If you improve your space for 12 minutes every day, that is more than 6 hours a month. More than 70 hours a year. And that is just time. Now imagine the mental clarity, the discipline, the sense of control you develop. It compounds. Everything in life compounds. Your habits, your mindset, your environment. If you ignore small actions, you also ignore small problems. And small problems grow, clutter grows, stress grows, disorganization grows, but the opposite is also true. Small actions grow into structure. A structure grows into discipline. Discipline grows into transformation. That is why starting small is not a limitation. It is a foundation. Now let's talk about daily action. Starting small is important, but starting daily is essential. If you only act when you feel like it, you will never be consistent. Feelings change. Discipline stays. You must detach your actions from your emotions. You don't ask yourself, do I feel like doing this? You tell yourself, this is what I do. That is identity. When something becomes part of your identity, it no longer requires motivation. You don't need motivation to brush your teeth. You do it because it is part of who you are. In the same way, you must reach a point where maintaining your space is not a task. It is a standard. And standards are built daily. Missing one day may seem harmless, but missing one day leads to missing 2, then 3, then a week. And suddenly, you are back where you started. That is why consistency matters more than perfection. You don't need to do it perfectly. You just need to do it consistently. Even if you are tired, even if you are busy, even if you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Because those are the moments that define your discipline. Anyone can act when they feel motivated. Few people act when they don't. And those few people create results. Now, let's be honest. 12 minutes will not change your entire life in one day, but it will change your direction. Direction is more important than speed. If you are going in the wrong direction, going faster only makes it worse. But if you are going in the right direction, even slowly, you will eventually reach your destination. Small daily actions keep you moving in the right direction. They keep you focused. They keep you grounded. They keep you in control. Control is important. When your environment is chaotic, your mind becomes chaotic. You feel overwhelmed. You feel stressed. You feel stuck. But when your environment is organized, your mind becomes clear. You think better. You act better. You feel better. It is not magic. It is structure. And structure is built through daily actions. Now, here is something important. Do not try to do more than necessary. People often start small, but then they get excited. They try to do more. They increase the time, they increase the effort. And then they burn out. Stay disciplined, not emotional. If the method is 12 minutes, keep it. 12 minutes, stop when the time is over. Why? Because the goal is not to finish everything. The goal is to build consistency. If you always leave something unfinished, you create a reason to come back tomorrow. And that is how you build a daily habit. Now, let's talk about excuses. You will have many. I don't have time. I am too tired. I will do it later. These are not real problems. They are decisions. You always have 12 minutes. The question is not time. The question is priority. If something is important, you make time for it. If it is not, you make excuses. So be honest with yourself. Do you want change or do you want comfort? Because you cannot have both. Change requires discomfort. Not extreme discomfort, but consistent, small discomfort, 12 minutes of discipline every day. That is the price. And it is a small price to pay for clarity, control, and peace of mind. Now imagine this. You wake up every day and your space is improving. Not perfect, but better than yesterday. You feel progress. You see progress. That creates motivation, but not the type you depend on. It is the result of action, not the cause of it. This is how disciplined people live. They don't wait for motivation. They create it through action. So stop overthinking. Stop planning too much. Stop waiting. Start small. Start daily, 12 minutes, one task, one decision, one step forward, and then repeat, because in the end, success is not about doing something big once. It is about doing something small every single day without stopping. That is how your home changes. That is how your energy changes. And that is how your life changes. People don't suffer because they lack things. They suffer because they have too many things that don't matter. This is the reality most people avoid. They keep objects they don't use, clothes they don't wear, papers they don't need, and memories that no longer serve them. And then they wonder why they feel heavy, distracted, and mentally exhausted. The problem is not the space. The problem is the excess. Everything you keep has a cost. Not always a financial cost, but a mental cost, a visual cost, an emotional cost. Every unnecessary object takes a little bit of your attention. It creates noise. It competes for your focus. And when your environment is full of noise, your mind becomes noisy too. Clarity does not come from adding more. It comes from removing what is unnecessary. This is where most people struggle because letting go is difficult, not physically, but emotionally. You don't keep things because you need them. You keep them because of what they represent. A memory, a moment, a version of yourself. But here is the truth. Holding on to something that no longer adds value does not honor the past. It limits your present. You are not your old objects. You are not your past decisions. Growth requires separation. If you want a clear mind, you need a clear space. And a clear space requires elimination. Not everything deserves to stay. You must become selective. Every item in your space should answer one question. Does this add value to my life? If the answer is no, it should not be there. Civil. But not easy, because people confuse value with attachment. Just because something is expensive does not mean it is valuable. Just because something is old does not mean it is important. Just because something was once useful does not mean it still is. Value is not based on the past. It is based on the present. What matters now? What serves you now? What supports your current life? Your current goals, your current mindset? If something does not serve your present, it becomes a burden. And burdens slow you down. Think about this carefully. When your space is full, your decisions become harder. You waste time choosing what to wear. You waste time looking for things. You waste energy managing what you don't need. And slowly, without realizing it, your environment controls you instead of you controlling your environment. This is the opposite of discipline. Discipline is not just about doing more. It is about eliminating what is unnecessary. Saying no is a form of discipline. Removing is a form of control. Now, understand this clearly. Removing things is not about becoming empty. It is about becoming intentional. You don't remove everything. You remove what does not align with your life. There is a difference. Minimalism is not about having less. It is about having what matters. And most people have never defined what matters. That is why they keep everything. When you don't have clarity, you keep options. When you keep options, you create clutter. Clutter is postponed decisions. Every item you haven't decided about becomes mental weight. And mental weight creates stress. So what is the solution? You decide. You take control. You stop avoiding decisions and start making them one by one, not everything at once. Again, small actions. You don't clean the entire house. You take one area, one drawer, one shelf, one corner, and you apply a simple rule. Keep or remove. No maybe. No later. No, I'll think about it. Indecision creates clutter. Decision creates clarity. Be honest with yourself. If you haven't used something in a long time, it is not essential. If you forgot you had it, it is not important. If it doesn't support your current life, it is not valuable. Reomit. Now, this does not mean you become careless. You don't throw everything away without thinking. You evaluate. But you don't overthink, because overthinking leads to inaction. And inaction leads to accumulation. Most people know what they should remove. They just don't do it because they hesitate. They think, what if I need it later? This is fear. And fear creates clutter. You are not preparing for the future. You are avoiding a decision in the present. Trust yourself. If something becomes necessary in the future, you will find a solution. But keeping everything just in case is not preparation. It is insecurity. Confidence allows you to let go. Now, let's talk about emotional attachment. This is where the real challenge is. Some items are not just objects, they are memories. And removing them feels like losing something, but understand this. Memories do not live in objects, they live in you. Keeping an object does not preserve a memory. It only preserves space it occupies. You can respect your past without being controlled by it. Take what matters internally. Let go of what does not serve externally. This is maturity. This is growth. Now, consider your energy. Your environment affects your energy more than you think. A cluttered space drains you. Even if you don't realize it consciously, your mind is constantly processing it. It creates tension. It creates distraction. But when you remove what is unnecessary, something changes. You feel lighter. You breathe easier. You think clearer because your environment is no longer demanding your attention. It supports you instead of overwhelming you. This is not about aesthetics. This is about function. A valuable space is not one that looks good. It is one that works for you. Everything in it has a purpose. Everything in it supports your life. Nothing in it is there by accident. This is intentional living. Now, let's connect this to discipline. Removing what doesn't add value is a daily practice, not a one-time event. Because clutter is not created in one day. It is created through small, repeated decisions, and it is removed the same way daily. You don't wait until your space is completely overwhelmed. You maintain it. You observe. You adjust. You remove continuously. This keeps your environment aligned with your life because your life changes. Your needs change. Your priorities change. And your space must reflect that. If it doesn't, it becomes outdated, and outdated environments create friction. Friction slows you down. Now, here is something important. Do not replace what you remove with more unnecessary things. This is a common mistake. People clean, organize, remove, and then they buy more. And the cycle repeats because the problem was never the space, it was the mindset. If you don't change how you think about value, you will continue to accumulate. So develop awareness. Before bringing something into your space, ask yourself, does this add value? Not temporary satisfaction, not impulse, real value. Does it serve a purpose? Does it improve your life? Does it align with who you are becoming? If not, don't bring it in. Prevention is easier than removal. Now, let's be direct. You don't need most of the things you have. You just got used to them. And comfort is dangerous because it prevents change. You must challenge your comfort. You must question your habits. You must redefine what is necessary, because a disciplined life is not built on excess, it is built on clarity. And clarity requires elimination, so don't be afraid to remove. You are not losing, you are gaining space, you are gaining focus, you are gaining control. Every item you remove is a decision. Every decision strengthens your discipline, and discipline is the foundation of everything. Without discipline, you accumulate. With discipline, you refine. So start today, not with everything, with one area, one decision, one removal, and then repeat. Because transformation is not about doing something once, it is about doing something consistently. Reown what doesn't add value. Keep what matters and build a space and a life that reflects clarity, purpose, and control. People wait for motivation. That is why they fail. This may sound direct, but it is true. Motivation feels good. It gives you energy, excitement, and a sense of possibility. But motivation is unstable. It changes with your mood, your environment, your sleep, your emotions. Some days you feel strong. Some days you feel tired. Some days you feel inspired. Most days you don't. If your actions depend on motivation, your results will always be inconsistent. And inconsistency never produces real change. This is why discipline is more important. Discipline is not based on how you feel. It is based on what you decide. It is the ability to act even when you don't feel like acting, especially when you don't feel like acting. This is where most people stop. They say, I don't feel like doing it today. And they believe that feeling is valid enough to stop. But discipline does not ask for your feelings. It demands your commitment. You said you would do it, so you do it. Simple. Not easy, but simple. Let's be clear. Discipline is not something you are born with. It is something you build. And you build it through repetitions, small actions. Every day, even when you don't want to. In fact, those are the most important moments, because discipline is not tested when you feel good. It is tested when you feel resistance. When you are tired, when you are distracted, when you are not in the mood, that is where discipline is built. Anyone can act when they feel motivated. Few people act when they feel resistance. And those few people are the ones who create results. Now, think about your daily life. How many things do you not do because you don't feel like doing them? How many times do you delay something important because your energy is low? This is how habits are formed, not by what you do once, but by what you avoid repeatedly. Avoidance becomes a pattern, and patterns become your life. If you avoid action every time you feel uncomfortable, you train yourself to escape difficulty. But if you act despite discomfort, you train yourself to face it. That is discipline. It is not about perfection. It is about response. How do you respond when you don't feel like doing something? That answer defines your future. Now, let's connect this to your environment. You say you want a clean, organized space, but you wait until you feel motivated to clean. That is the mistake. Because motivation will not show up consistently, so your space becomes inconsistent. Some days it is organized, some days it is not. This creates instability, but discipline creates stability. If you commit to 12 minutes every day, regardless of how you feel, your environment becomes stable. And when your environment is stable, your mind becomes stable. This is not just about cleaning. It is about control. When you rely on motivation, you lose control. Your actions depend on something external. When you rely on discipline, you gain control. Your actions depend on your decision. Control creates confidence because you know you will act no matter what. And that certainty changes everything. Now, understand this clearly. Discipline is not extreme. It is not about doing everything perfectly. It is about doing what is necessary consistently, 12 minutes. That's all, not more, not less. You don't need to do extra. You need to do it regularly because consistency builds identity. You don't become disciplined by saying, I am disciplined. You become disciplined by acting like a disciplined person every day. Identity follows action. If you act with discipline daily, your mind begins to accept it. You stop questioning it. It becomes normal. And once something becomes normal, it becomes easy, not because the task changed, but because you changed. Now, let's talk about excuses. You will have many. I am tired. I had a long day. I will do it tomorrow. These are not reasons. These are habits. Excuses are repeated thoughts that justify inaction. And the more you repeat them, the stronger they become. So you must interrupt them, not by arguing, not by thinking, by acting. Action breaks excuses. You don't need to convince yourself. You need to move, even if it is slow, even if it is imperfect. Just start. Because starting is the hardest part. Once you begin, resistance decreases. This is something most people don't realize. They think the difficulty is in the work, but the real difficulty is in the beginning. After that, it becomes easier. So your goal is not to feel ready. Your goal is to start without feeling ready. That is discipline. Now, let's be honest. Discipline is uncomfortable. Not extremely uncomfortable, but consistently uncomfortable. It requires you to act when you would rather rest. It requires you to choose long-term benefits over short-term comfort. And that is difficult, but it is also what creates results. Because most people choose comfort, they choose what feels good now, and they sacrifice what could be better later. Discipline reverses this. It chooses what is necessary now to create something better later. This is delayed gratification. And it is a powerful skill. When you practice discipline daily, even in small actions, you strengthen your ability to delay gratification. You become more focused, more patient, more controlled, and this affects every area of your life, not just your home. Your work improves, Your decisions improve. Your mindset improves. Because discipline is transferable. If you can control your actions in one area, you can apply that control in others. Now, let's talk about failure. You will fail sometimes. You will miss a day. You will feel resistance. You will struggle. That is normal. Discipline is not about never failing. It is about not quitting. If you miss one day, you return the next. Immediately. You don't wait. You don't restart next week. You continue. Because consistency is not about perfection. It is about persistence. The difference between disciplined people and undisciplined people is not that one never fails. It is that one continues despite failure. So don't be too harsh on yourself, but don't be too comfortable either. Balance is important. Hold yourself accountable, but keep moving forward. Now, think about this. What kind of person do you want to be? Someone who acts only when they feel like it? Or someone who acts because they decided to? That is the difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation says, if I feel good, I will act. Discipline says, I act and then I feel good. The order matters. Action comes first. Feeling comes later. This is a mindset shift. And once you understand it, everything changes. You stop waiting. You stop depending on emotions. You take control. Now, bring this back to the method. 12 minutes every day. No negotiation, no excuses, no dependence on mood, just action. This is how discipline is built, slowly, repeatedly, consistently. And over time, something powerful happens. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. What once required effort becomes routine. And what once felt impossible becomes normal. This is transformation, not sudden, not dramatic, but real and lasting. So stop chasing motivation. It will come and go. But discipline stays. It stays when you are tired. It stays when you are busy. It stays when you don't feel like it. And that is why it works. Because life is not lived in perfect conditions. It is lived in ordinary days, and discipline wins in ordinary days. So start today. Not when you feel ready, not when you feel motivated. Start because you decided 12 minutes, one action, no excuses, and then repeat. Because in the end, discipline is not about doing something extraordinary. It is about doing something ordinary every single day without stopping. That is the difference. That is the method. And that is how your life changes. Everything you heard today is simple. But simplicity is not the same as ease. Starting small, removing what doesn't add value, and choosing discipline over motivation, these are not complicated ideas. In fact, most people already know them. The real difference is not knowledge. The real difference is action. Knowing is not change. Doing is change. You don't transform your life by understanding more. You transform it by applying what you already understand. 12 minutes a day may sound insignificant. Removing one unnecessary item may feel too small. Acting without motivation may feel uncomfortable. But this is exactly how real change works: quiet, consistent, and often unnoticed at the beginning. Most people overestimate what they can do in one day and underestimate what they can do in 1 year. They expect quick transformation, and when they don't see it, they quit. But discipline does not work in quick results. It works in repetition, day after day, action after action, decision after decision. And slowly, without dramatic moments, your life begins to shift. Your space becomes clearer. Your mind becomes lighter. Your habits become stronger, and your identity begins to change. You stop being someone who tries. You become someone who does. That is the real goal, not perfection, not intensity, not motivation, but consistency. So don't wait for the perfect moment. It does not exist. Don't wait for the perfect mood. It will change. Don't wait for the perfect energy. It will come and go. Start with what you have. Start where you are and start today, because every day you delay, you are not standing still. You are repeating the same cycle. But every day you act, even for 12 minutes, you are breaking that cycle. You are building a new one, a cycle of discipline, a cycle of clarity, a cycle of control. And over time, that cycle becomes your identity. In the end, your life is not shaped by what you intend to do. It is shaped by what you repeatedly do. So choose carefully, choose small actions, choose daily action, choose discipline, and most importantly, choose to begin, because the truth is simple. You don't need a new life. You need a new daily standard, and once your daily standard changes, everything else will follow.